Hello, my friends, and welcome back to Streamline English. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Get comfortable, take a slow breath in, and gently out. Tonight's story goes up, above the clouds, across dark oceans, into skies that most people of her time thought a woman had no business being in. Did you know that in 1928, a woman crossed the Atlantic Ocean by air for the first time? Did you know that 4 years later, the same woman crossed it again, but this time, alone, in a small plane, over nearly 3,000 kilometers of dark and dangerous ocean, with no radar, no GPS, and nothing but her instruments, her skill, and her extraordinary courage? She was the most famous female aviator in history. She set record after record. She flew higher, faster, and further than any woman before her, and many men. And then, in the summer of 1937, on the most ambitious flight of her life, she disappeared somewhere over the vast Pacific Ocean. And, despite decades of searches, the world has never entirely agreed on what happened to her. Her name was Amelia Earhart, and this is her story. If you enjoy learning English through stories of extraordinary courage like this, please subscribe to Streamline English. It truly helps our little channel grow. Thank you, my friend. Our story begins in the year 1897, in the town of Atchison, in the state of Kansas, in the middle of the United States. A baby girl was born into a comfortable family, and they named her Amelia. She grew up in the American Midwest, a world of wide, flat prairies and enormous skies, and from very early on, young Amelia was the kind of girl who noticed the sky. She was not a quiet, conventional child. She climbed trees, hunted rats with a rifle, and kept a detailed notebook of the different insects and animals she found. She was curious, adventurous, and not particularly interested in what other girls of her time were expected to do. She once built a small wooden roller coaster in her uncle's backyard. The first descent was terrifyingly fast, and afterwards declared that it was just like flying. Her childhood was also marked by instability. Her father struggled with alcoholism, which caused financial difficulties, and moved the family from city to city. Amelia learned, early, to rely on herself, to be adaptable, self-sufficient, and persistent. Persistent means continuing to try, even when things are difficult. The world was changing rapidly around her. It was the early 20th century, and one of the most extraordinary things the human race had ever done was being done for the first time. People were learning to fly. In 1903, when Amelia was about 6 years old, the Wright brothers made the first powered airplane flight in history. A flight of only a few seconds and a few meters. But it was the beginning of everything. Amelia was drawn to flying from the moment she first heard about it. But for many years, it seemed like a distant dream. The world of aviation was expensive, difficult, and almost entirely male. Everything changed on one ordinary day in 1920, in Long Beach, California. Amelia was 23 years old, working as a telephone operator to save money, and someone suggested she take a short ride in a small airplane, the early kind, open cockpit, nothing but wood and canvas and a roaring engine. The plane took off, the ground fell away, and within the first few minutes, Amelia Earhart knew, with complete certainty, what the rest of her life was going to be about. She decided she would learn to fly. This was not a simple decision. Flying lessons in the 1920s were expensive, and Amelia did not have much money. She took multiple jobs, driving a gravel truck, working at a photography studio, saving every penny. She cut her hair short, wore a leather jacket, slept in her jacket to make it look properly worn in, because she wanted to look like a pilot, not a beginner. She was working backward from the dream, making herself fit the image before she had fully earned it. Her first flying teacher was a woman, a remarkable woman named Netta Snook, one of the very few female pilots of the time. Netta taught Amelia the basics, and then Amelia kept flying, kept learning, kept pushing. In 1921, just over a year after her first flight, Amelia made her first solo flight, a flight by herself, with no instructor, no safety net. She was 24 years old. Many people, both men and women, never attempt a solo flight in their entire lives. Amelia made hers while she was still learning. She bought her own small plane, a bright yellow biplane she called the Canary, and began setting records almost immediately. In 1922, she set a women's altitude record, flying higher than any woman had yet flown. She had barely started, and already she was rewriting what was possible. In the spring of 1928, a telephone call came that changed Amelia's life. A wealthy American woman wanted to sponsor the first flight by a woman across the Atlantic Ocean. The flight would be made in a small seaplane, and they wanted Amelia as the female passenger aboard. Not the pilot, the passenger. Amelia accepted, because she understood the practical reality of the situation, but she was clear-eyed about it. She called herself a sack of potatoes, cargo, not truly a flyer in this case, just a body in the seat. She found it frustrating. She promised herself that one day she would fly the Atlantic herself, as the pilot, alone. The flight succeeded. The 3-person crew landed in Wales after 20 hours and 40 minutes, and Amelia Earhart became famous overnight. Parades, speeches, newspaper covers, magazine features. The world wanted to know her. She was charming, witty, and spoke clearly about her belief that women should have the same opportunities as men in aviation and in life. But Amelia privately felt that she had not yet earned the fame. She had been a passenger, and so she began to plan. She worked, she practiced, she flew constantly, building her hours, her skills, her confidence. She took a job as an aviation editor for a magazine, writing articles about flying. She helped found an organization for female pilots. She was becoming not just a pilot, but a voice, a public advocate for women in the air. And then, on the evening of May 20th, 1932, she climbed into a single-engine Lockheed Vega at an airport in Newfoundland, Canada, pointed her plane east across the dark Atlantic, and flew. Alone. The flight was not easy. She encountered icy conditions that made her plane heavy and hard to control. Her altimeter, the instrument that tells a pilot how high they are flying, stopped working, meaning she had to judge her height by watching the ocean below. She descended dangerously close to the waves before climbing again. Flames appeared near the engine manifold, and she watched them carefully, ready to turn back if they grew worse. But she did not turn back. After nearly 15 hours, she landed, not in her planned destination of Paris, but in a green field in Northern Ireland, where a startled farmer looked out of his barn and saw a small airplane sitting in his meadow and a woman climbing out of it. "Have you flown far?" he asked. "From America," she said. She had become the first woman, and only the second person, to fly the Atlantic solo. The world went wild. After her Atlantic crossing, Amelia Earhart became one of the most celebrated people in the world. She was invited to the White House. She became friends with President Franklin Roosevelt and his wife Eleanor. She received medals, honorary degrees, and speaking invitations from all over the world. But fame did not slow her down. If anything, it gave her more resources, more sponsorship, more support, and she used all of it to fly. She set the women's speed record over a measured course. She flew across the United States alone, the first solo crossing by a woman. She flew from Hawaii to California, a much longer transoceanic flight than the Atlantic crossing, and more dangerous because there were no landmarks in the middle of the Pacific, just ocean, for more than 3,000 kilometers. Many pilots, male and female, had died attempting that Pacific crossing before. Amelia made it safely. She set transcontinental speed records. She flew higher, longer, further, again and again. She was systematic about it, each flight carefully prepared, publicly announced, and used to advance the cause she cared about most, the idea that women were as capable in the sky as any man. She was also, throughout all of this, deeply practical and clear-eyed. She wrote about flying honestly, about the fear, the mistakes, the bad weather, the times when she was not sure she would make it. She did not pretend that courage meant having no fear. She knew what fear felt like. She flew anyway. Courage, she understood, is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more. And then, at the age of 39, she decided on one final, enormous project. The plan was the most ambitious thing Amelia Earhart had ever attempted. She would fly around the world, along a route that would take her close to the equator, the widest part of the Earth. It would be the longest route anyone had yet attempted for a circumnavigation by air. Circumnavigation means traveling all the way around the Earth. She prepared carefully. She trained. She equipped a Lockheed Electra, a twin-engine plane, with extra fuel tanks. She assembled a skilled navigator, a man named Fred Noonan, who was one of the best aerial navigators in the world. They set off on June 1st, 1937, from Miami, Florida. They flew east, across South America, Africa, India, Southeast Asia, and Australia. Each leg of the journey went well. They were more than 2/3 of the way around the world. The most dangerous and difficult part lay ahead, the vast Central Pacific. The critical waypoint was Howland Island, a tiny speck of land, barely 3 kilometers long, in the middle of an enormous ocean. If they missed it, there was nothing for hundreds of kilometers in any direction. A U.S. Coast Guard vessel was positioned near the island, with radio equipment to help guide the plane in. And then, on July 2nd, 1937, something went wrong. Radio contact with Amelia was maintained for a period, then grew unclear, then disappeared. Her last radio transmissions spoke of fuel concerns and difficulty locating the island, and then silence. The plane never arrived. No confirmed wreckage was ever found. No bodies were ever recovered. Amelia Earhart and Fred Noonan simply vanished, somewhere over the Pacific, leaving behind one of the greatest mysteries of the 20th century. The search was enormous, the largest sea and air search in U.S. naval history to that date. It found nothing. Over the decades since, various theories have been proposed: that they ran out of fuel and ditched in the ocean, that they landed on a remote island and survived for some time, that the plane ended up somewhere other than the Howland Island route. Researchers continue to investigate. No definitive answer has ever been found. She was 39 years old. She had a list of things she still wanted to do. Amelia Earhart's life was defined by one consistent principle. When someone says you cannot do something because of who you are, not because of what you can do, but because of what you are, you find a way to do it anyway. She flew at a time when aviation was genuinely dangerous. The planes were primitive by modern standards. The technology was unreliable. Many pilots died. Amelia knew this better than almost anyone, because she had lost people she knew to flying accidents. She understood the risk, and she flew anyway. She did not fly recklessly. She prepared carefully, trained thoroughly, and approached each flight with knowledge and respect for its dangers. Courage, for Amelia, was not wild bravado. It was disciplined action in the face of acknowledged risk. And she used every achievement, every record, every moment of fame to push one idea: that women could do what men could do, not because they wanted to copy men, but because the sky belongs to anyone brave enough and skilled enough to get into it. You don't have to prove yourself to every person who doubts you. You only have to do the thing they said you couldn't. So tonight, why do I tell you this story? Because somewhere in your English journey, someone, or maybe that voice inside your own head, has probably told you that this is not for you, that it is too hard, that people from your background, with your accent, at your age, at your level, well, perhaps they don't really do this. Perhaps this is for other kinds of people. Amelia Earhart heard that voice her whole life. She heard it from a world that told her clearly and consistently that the sky was not her place. She was not polite about ignoring it. She just flew. You don't have to be polite about it either. You don't have to wait for permission. You don't have to be the right age, the right background, the right starting level. You just have to keep going. One word, one story, one flight at a time. The sky, my friend, belongs to you too. If this story inspired you, please give it a like and subscribe to Streamline English. It truly helps us grow. And tell me in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? Until next time, keep flying, keep learning, and have a wonderful day.